Let's talk about the ethics of outing historical figures. Welcome back to Yesterqueers. My name's Amanda. I'm a public historian who talks about queer history on the internet. 3 things to clarify before we get into it. First is, I'm not a trained ethicist, so I'm going to be discussing my feelings about and approach to telling the stories of queer historical figures. There are academic articles linked in the usual place for those who want to do a deeper dive. I'm specifically going to address telling the stories of people who have already died. The ethics of outing people who are still alive is an entirely different discussion for another video. And third, let's define our term. Outing, a concept which was first introduced to the broader public in a 1990 Time magazine article, is the act of revealing a person's queer identity without their consent. So, in the strictest sense, I don't out anybody. I research published work and then take a person's biography or a historical event and condense it down into a 3 to 5 minute video. I don't say anything in my videos that hasn't already been published in multiple places, and I always cite my sources. But just saying that doesn't really address the spirit of this comment. I clearly have no problem talking about the queerness or alleged queerness of historical figures, and there's a few reasons for that. One of the main concerns about outing living people is that it could put them in physical or emotional danger, but that's not a concern for the deceased. Many will say that it endangers their legacies to do so, but think about that for a second. Is Emiliano Zapata suddenly a less skilled guerrilla fighter, a less brilliant tactician, a less inspiring leader simply because he may have slept with men? No. The addition of that piece to his story does nothing to diminish his accomplishments, but it does provide depth and complexity to a person who's been flattened out into a mythic figure, and it does provide a new point of connection for modern people studying the Mexican Revolution. There are some, like the commenter I'm responding to, who say that we shouldn't discuss a person's queerness when they're not alive to defend themselves. But I wholeheartedly reject the notion that a person's sexual orientation or gender identity requires defense. It's a fact about a person, as morally neutral as their hair color or favorite food. And we discuss a lot of things about historical figures that they never made public. We publish diaries and private correspondence that rocket up the New York Times bestseller list. We visit museum exhibits about the private lives of public figures, and we devour biographies that reveal the most intimate details of a person's life. You rarely hear anyone say that those things are unethical, so why is discussing a person's queerness different? It isn't, or at least it shouldn't be. And look, intent matters. When Bobby Brown outed Whitney Houston as a bisexual shortly after her death, that was gross and exploitative because he wasn't trying to honor her legacy or provide context for her life. He was trying to sell books. I created Yesterqueers to share the stories of our queer ancestors because we have always been here and we have always been queer. And I think it is vital to create connections between the past and the present, to place our modern queer community within its accurate historical context. Our history has been purposefully buried and erased for centuries, and we have a right to reclaim it. We have a right to know the people who came before, how they moved through the world, how they found community and joy, and how they fought to make the world a better place for us. Queer history provides hope and inspires courage by helping people understand that the queer community's journey is not a linear march from the terrible dark days of the past to some mystical bright future. Loving people of the same gender, changing your gender, choosing different ways to love and be loved are not modern inventions, and they have not always been as hard as they are for a lot of people right now. That's it for today. As always, more information, including sources and further reading, is available in the usual place.